whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome. Everyone.
Welcome.
Pew, 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 pew. Now that we have our YouTubes up too, pew, pew, pew. Hey people who are actually watching this on here, what up?
Hello.
Hey.
Good to see our faces because we still can't see your faces. But hey, here we are.
We are here.
We are here, and here is where we'll stay to talk about a doozy of a movie. I was about to say musical. I don't know, because I'm looking at Hamilton things. A doozy.
I do not want to see a Sleepaway Camp musical.
It's like, oh my God. Truly, the movie Camp with Anna Kendrick. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just popped in my head. And Sleepaway just melded into one, and then there it is, right there. Brian, produce it, make it so.
No.
Maybe don't. Maybe steer clear.
A hard no. Okay, well,
You know,
with that-
I did write a Sleepaway Camp musical, not based on this, from my own experience. I went to Sleepaway Camp for many years.
Oh, I can't wait to ask you questions and reference the movie that we're talking about,
Yeah.
which we've already said. But
Can't wait for you to
today,
sing.
oh yeah, also sing.
Yeah, but I mean, some of the stuff in here is absolutely from when I went to camp, and we'll get into that. I'll let you
Oof.
continue your intro.
Love that.
Well, no, I mean, not the things you may think.
Today's gonna be fun, guys. Woo-hoo. Lots to discuss because we are talking about the 1983 American slasher and cult classic, ? Sleepaway Camp. Now, this movie was written and directed by Robert Hiltzik, and this is the first of 5 in the chain, guys. There are 5 of these movies, okay? This one, though, the OG, it stars Felissa Rose, Catherine Kami, Karen Fields, Paul D'Angelo, Mike Kellen, and Christopher Cullett. Now, heavy spoilers for the movie Sleepaway Camp. We will be talking about everything and obviously the twist at the end, which we'll dive heavily into in our brains and mental health section. Jamie, are there trigger warnings for this? I'm sure there are.
Oh my God. Like, what isn't a trigger warning for this movie? There's just so much. Okay.
Mhm.
There's a lot. I mean, there is a lot of insides on the outsides, but like it's all a lot of practical effects, but it's still pretty gross. So if that's not for you, but also like there's just, references to sexual assault. There's transphobia, there's homophobia.
Oof.
There is a lot of poor representations of mental health and mental illness.
Lots of misogyny, lots of toxic masculinity, lots of
Yeah. Yeah, just very gross, heavy-handed, like assaulty, weird. Ugh. Yeah, I don't know who this movie's for, so
Go ahead.
I'd also like to put out a trigger warning for Ronnie's package.
What?
what?
Ronnie, the camp counselor, the boys director, or whatever it is, with his little tight shorts the whole entire time.
Oh, I'm gonna comment on that. Let's circle
Yeah.
back to Ronnie's shorts because I definitely have a comment about that. But before we get into all the things, because I think we're just like ready to throw up everything that is Sleepaway Camp. Brian, producer Brian, I think you have some words for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some housekeeping up front. Would love for everyone to subscribe to us on our new YouTube channel. You get these episodes live to tape, but recordings. Hello, I'm waving to you if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, head over to our YouTube page. It's in the description of this episode, and subscribe there. Additionally, follow us on all social media at Talk Horror Pod. At Talk Horror Pod. We are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, so check us there. I am currently doing a rewatch with Jamie of all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Um, it's not even a rewatch; it's a watch through because between the two of us, I think we've only really seen like 2 or 3 of them total. So that's cool. And then I'm going to be doing a Friday the 13th watch through. I've only seen the first one and Jason X, and so it'll culminate in one big Freddy versus Jason. So follow me on follow Talk Horror Pod as I talk through all of that on TikTok. We watch trailers there as well, so check all that out. Follow us everywhere. Okay, back to you, Nikisha and Jamie.
Yes, I cannot wait for you to get to Freddy versus Jason. It's just going to be such a great culmination of all
Okay,
the things.
okay, Nikisha, you've seen most of these. You've seen more of these movies than Jamie and I.
Hmm.
Who do you think we will be rooting for in Freddy versus Jason?
Jason, hands down.
Oh, really? You think we'll
Yes.
both be
Interesting.
pro Jason?
I think by the
Hmm.
time you watch all of Nightmare and watch all of Friday the 13th, in your knowledge, then you will be going for Jason. But I
Okay,
can't wait for you to tell me when that happens.
fantastic, great, thank you. Back to you and Sleepaway Camp.
In Sleepaway Camp. So let's just get into it. We need a 2-minute plot summary. So Brian or Jamie, it's up to you.
What's the plot?
All right, Jamie, I'll do it. Can you?
Okay.
Woo!
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you for sacrificing yourself for the greater good. All right. So we are
Absolutely.
setting a timer for 2 minutes for you to the best of your abilities, describe this very thorough plot. Are you ready
Okay.
for the challenge?
I have never been more ready in my whole entire life.
All right. 3, 2, 1. What is Sleepaway Camp about?
Sleepaway Camp is about wild things that happen in Sleepaway Camp. We open up on a lake, and this dad is on a boat with his 2 kids. They're, messing around. They push him into the water. A man tells them to come back in because the cousins are coming. Cool, great. But then there's a boating accident where some young teens hit them and kill the father and kill the uh, and killed the son. And so then we flash forward 9 years later. We find out that the daughter survived, and she is living with her aunt and cousin. The aunt is a little kooky, but hands them their physicals. And sends them off to Sleepaway Camp. And then at Sleepaway Camp, her cousin Ricky is one of her is honestly is a spectacular cousin. Really takes care of her, watches out for her. She's very quiet. Obviously, she still has some trauma from what happened. And then basically every time that someone is mean to her or something happens to her, that person dies. Whether it's the cook, whether it is some of the bullies, whether it is one of the girl bullies in her bunk. Anyway, the owner, for some reason, thinks it's a cousin. Long story short, we get to the end, and it's revealed that the boy survived, but the aunt decided to raise the boy as a girl. And so the last shot is that we find out that the killer was Angela or Peter, and we see Peter's penis. And that is the end of the movie. We also find out that like her dad was secretly gay. His dad was secretly gay. We'll get into that. That's Sleepaway Camp. Also, lots of Sleepaway Camp shenanigans. I would argue this is more of a camp movie than it is a slasher movie.
Yes.
Good job. With 10 seconds left on the clock.
Oh, I
Not
have
too
10 more
shabby.
seconds. I will use
Well,
that to say. And there's also Ronnie's package.
Thank you.
And that's the plot.
Oh, yes. So a lot to unpack there with Ronnie's package and such. So that was just for you, Brian, coming with puns.
Thank you.
Let's get into our first segment, which is likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So, Jamie, could you start us off? Tell us, well, I'll say this. This is all of our first time watching this movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So none of us have seen this before. And I dare to say, because we love to watch our Watch Mojo's top 10s, whatever. I did did not remember seeing the twist at all in any of those, so that was also a surprise to me. Is that a surprise for all y'all too?
Not for me.
Okay, so you knew. Okay, well, go ahead with your
It
likes.
was
Sorry.
a surprise for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Jamie, yeah, start us off.
So never saw this movie before. I feel like it's been on a lot of people's lists, like, oh, you have to see this movie again, like the Watch Mojo thing. So like I've had it on my list for a while. I did, however, know I knew what the twist was, but like I just figured, generic slasher film, but like nothing made sense about this movie. I mean, even for at its heart being a slasher film, like I guess some of the kills were okay, but some of them were gross and I hated them and were very upsetting. So I feel like the people who recommend this movie have way more nostalgia for it, and that's why they love this movie. Because I mean, we talk about properties that we have a lot of nostalgia for, and we hold them very dearly, even if they're not always the best things. But like we value and appreciate them because of the relationship we have with them. I have no relationship to this movie, and I'm okay if I never watch it ever again. I don't even know if I can recommend this movie to anyone because it's
Real
just
talk.
it's just bonkers. I mean, I like summer camp. That's my like. My gripe is everything else about this movie. I like the aunt is like very strange, and obviously we know that she's like mentally ill later on, but like I didn't even understand what her shtick was in the beginning. And like when
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I tied this to my finger so I wouldn't forget. And I was like, okay, like tell me what you didn't forget. Like I can't handle
Truly.
this. Like what is going on? And man, the cousin who was the cousin? Ricky? Now I'm forgetting all of
Yeah, Ricky.
um, Ricky has so much patience for his mom. I mean, he's like the best character in my opinion in this whole movie. He's incredibly kind and empathetic towards Angela. I'm gonna call her Angela. I
Mm-hmm.
think I don't really know what I should be calling her. I had read something about how like in future movies she does use like she her pronouns and like is fully accepting her identity as a woman. We'll get into all of that. I don't get it.
Oh my God.
Um,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but at least in this, like that's not how it's being portrayed.
Mm-mm.
So I'm just confused. I hate how like all of these camp counselors are like disgusting and like molesters. Like, how did they all get jobs? I was a college, not a college counselor. I was a camp counselor when I was younger and like in college, like for the summer, and
Mm-hmm.
worked for a town camp. And I like they did background checks on me, even though I was like a young person. But like they don't want like weirdos hanging out with
Right.
kids all day. Like, why are all of these I will say most of these adults were very strange. And like, I mean, the owner shouldn't be owning a summer camp
Exactly.
when he's like accusing a young child of murdering people and then tries to
And then beat up
murder.
the
Why don't you
child.
call the police? I just like don't understand. I don't understand anybody's choices.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't like everyone is so unnecessarily mean. Like the bullying, like just it seems so wild and out of context for reality. I'm just like, why do they care? Why do they care so much? And also, like some counselors knew what the deal was, that like Angela slash Peter is shy and like we're very empathetic and caring. But then
Mm-hmm.
like the one in her bunk was so awful to her. Like it just this movie makes no sense to me.
Yes, I think it was because, and just to piggyback on that, I think it's just because there was no motivation for any of the things happening for anyone, which made it just so unrealistic. And people were not peopling in this. Like we talk
People
about,
were not
people
peopling
were not
at
peopling.
all.
We talk about human behavior all the time, and this movie just screamed, what the hell is going on? Because none of y'all are making any type of logical, rational decisions. And one of my main gripes was that even though some people didn't know that these kids were literally dead, some of the counselors did, some of the kids, and there's like no remorse. Your friend you just saw yesterday came up in a lake and was dead, and you're just going on and saying, okay, let's go play capture the flag, guys, to take our
Like,
minds off
what?
the fact that somebody just died. Like that made me so mad that there was
Yeah.
nobody had any sympathy for anybody dying. It was
Yeah.
just like, we have to keep this train going by any means necessary. I know you counselors are not making that much money for you guys
No.
to say, oh yeah,
No.
I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut and keep taking care of these kids that are just dying one by one.
No,
What?
I certainly was not making enough money to be working at a summer camp where there's like a murderer on the loose, actively killing children and adults. Why are we still operating? Like, get
Yes.
everyone the hell out of here.
Tell them to go home. And then when the director was like, okay, now I gotta make the unfortunate call of talking to their parents and telling them that their
Jeez,
fucking
people
kid
are
died.
dead. What is wrong with you? Why did you decide to open a summer camp in the first place if you don't care about kids? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
No, there are absolutely a million ways to make money besides just forging along with this summer camp. Just to, because Jamie, you've said most of my gripes, but I, going through my notes, I just want to point out to the public that when the opening scene happened and then we flash forward, there's a lingering shot of the one kid that is alive, and then we say,
Oh.
I said, and then when we got back and then there was the girl and the guy, I was like, oh, thinking to myself, Ricky, I was like, oh, well, maybe that's the guy. And I was like, oh, wait, no, that's not the boy. I thought the boy lived.
Thank you,
I thought the
Nikisha.
boy lived.
That Nikisha.
I was waiting for this.
Nikisha.
What?
The
I put in
shot
my
at
notes.
the shot at the beginning of the movie when the kid floats up is 100% and clearly the boy who pops out of the water. I was
Yes.
very confused when the boy and the girl were like there in the next scene, because I was like, oh, I just like it. And then honestly, I was like, okay, this is a dumb 80s movie. Maybe they just like edited it stupidly or whatever. I did not think it was intentional, but like if I was actually like, okay, so I did not know the ending to this movie. However, I know that this is like a game-changing ending. It's an important ending. I mean, I'm not saying it is important. I'm just saying that like it's always been presented as like, do you know the end of Sleepaway Camp, or like it changed the game, or like things like that. I thought going into this movie, my guess was that the girl who's the main character and quiet was the killer. So I just assumed that Angela was the killer the whole time, because I thought that was the twist. In an early 80s movie, the young girl is the murderer, and like and the main character we're following along this whole time actually is the murderer. I thought that was the innovation from 1983. And so that's why I just threw out the fact that we clearly see the boy pop up at the end, because you see the dad floating away, you see a life jacket behind him, and then you see the boy float up, and then it's 9 years later or whatever it is. And I just threw that out the window because I'm like, I already know Angela's the killer, even though I don't know. And like,
right.
But I could not. Literally, I don't think I've agreed with you a million times on this podcast. I've never agreed with you more. We actually when we finished the movie, we went back to that scene. We went back to the weird flashback scene, and we went back to when just before Judy is killed, who's in the doorway.
Yes. Yes.
We'll cover all that. But and after I went back and watched it, I was like, okay, this is my last time watching this film.
Absolutely. I can't. Brian, you can continue on with your license cards, because I after that just took the cake when I got to the ending, and I was thinking, and I was right all along. What the hell? Because and thinking in my mind, I mean, Brian, that's smart of you to just say, oh, that's the innovation, is that the quiet girl is the killer, and that's enough. My brain was still like, they showed this. They had to have shown this for a reason. this opening scene, there's some connection. So maybe the survivor is like a Jason figure that like comes and just kills
Mm,
counselors because the counselors killed the father and the
sure,
sibling.
sure.
So that was where my brain was until you get into it, and then you're thinking, oh wait, no, they're talking about Angela as if she's the one that, and that's why she's quiet because her siblings died and her parent died, and what the hell? And yes, it just made no sense to me. But
Yeah.
keep going, Brian. Tell me any other likes and
Okay.
gripes you have.
Likes for this movie. I actually think that this gets a lot of summer camp correct in terms of like I had bullies. Kids are mean at summer camps when there aren't parents around. Like, you know what I mean?
We were talking about this because I was like, like, what about this
JP
was similar? And
laughing.
you were like, yeah, people pranked me. And then you told me it was the counselors.
No, yeah, no. So what happened? She was like,
No.
I was like, yeah, like the shaving cream in the hand and making them hit their face. Like we used to do that all the time. And then and then and then she was like, you were a bully. I was like, no, they did it to me. And then the counselors even did it one night.
Oh.
But like,
It's very
yeah,
mean. I think
yeah,
it's rude.
It's
like
very
kids were
mean.
mean. They were absolutely bullies. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot of that was real, but also you're also friends with people. Like that one
Yeah.
kid caught the ball in the outfield and people like said great job, but then they would torture him at night. Like that dynamic is very real. Um
Mm,
um and stuff like that, but like you make friendships that last forever. Like, you're horny 13-year-olds like just trying to make out with like girls and boys, like sneaking out of the bunks. Like also the counselors are horny, you know what I mean? Like so they're trying to like hook up with other counselors and stuff like that. I'm not saying what Mel did is appropriate. That's not at all what I'm saying.
right. Right.
But so I think that was okay. Also, like, and the language that they use, like the all the cursing and stuff, and all the like mean stuff they would say to each other, like 100%. Like I wrote down some of these, like this guy blows dead dogs, eat shit and die, eat shit and live. Also, is there a better baseball scene, Twilight or this? Um,
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
12, 7. You queer or something? A real carpenter's dream. Like there's like so many wild movies and lines in this movie. But one thing that I will say that I actually really liked about this. Okay, this is going to be, I don't know, controversial maybe. I think
Eek.
that this movie, and what the twist is awful. It just presents everything that we are trying to work towards changing. It presents it in such a negative light in terms of like transgender representation, the idea of gender in general. That like if you're a murderer, if you like are holding something in, like all that stuff is terrible.
Yes.
However, because the movie leans into it and subscribes to that, I think that a lot of the thematic things that this movie does is fascinating. There's no nudity in this movie for an 80s slasher movie. One. Two, this is our dog is barking because he's totally agrees with me. But
Yeah.
two, um, the fact that I know we're joking about Ronnie's package, but they're clearly highlighting the parts of all of these characters, that like their genitalia and stuff like that. And then there's that weird flashback scene where like they see their dad like cheating on the mom with another man, and we find out that like the dad brings them to like the woman, the dad brings them, I guess, to the partner's house on the lake, and then family's coming. I'm not really sure what that's all about. But then
Right.
there's that scene that's shifting around the bed where the kids are pointing at each other, and you think that she was, and that all happens when what's his name, Paulie is
Yeah. It's trying
Paul is
to.
trying
Yeah.
to assault her, or
Yes.
trying to make out with her on the beach, which is to assault. um and so you think in that moment, the red herring there is like, you think that she was maybe sexually assaulted by her brother, maybe like they're saying something very negative about homosexuality there, that like her dad seeing that, her seeing her dad like changed or whatever. But in reality, it's a foreshadowing to the fact that like the boy is the girl is the boy, and they're spinning around the bed, and they do that crossfade where like Peter and Angela's faces kind of like are the same in that moment. I think this is a really excellent thematic filmmaking for a theme that is garbage and awful. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like you could make some interesting choices, even though your ultimate choice, the like aggression of a transgender person essentially is
Yes.
like truly terrible. So I think those are some of my likes that like they kind of went for it, but they went for the wrong things. Um, some another like I think the practical effects are pretty good in this, like the boiling skin, the bee stings on that. I think even though I don't think those kills are great because like you're not seeing anything, it's all like after fact. Um,
Hmm.
I love the quirky 80s stuff where like people are yelling for way too long and they don't cut away from it.
Oh my
Um,
god, that beginning scene with the
yeah,
girl who is like water skiing, who's like, man, is she
No.
like acting for her life? Is screaming
Screaming.
at the top of her lungs in the water. Oh my god! Like it's just
Yes.
like wild.
Truly. And it's so like you said, Brian, it's so uncomfortable. Like her just being still and screaming for somebody to get an ambulance or something. Like
yeah.
it terrible.
Also, him screaming on the ground after the molester after he's poured the hot water on him. He screams for
Yes.
so long. I mean, he got what he deserved, but like he screams for so long. Some other things that I really liked about this movie. Some of my favorite lines were, "I thought you were the killer." Um,
Mm,
uh, Also, the age range of these children is wild at this camp.
yes.
You're a real peckerhead. You know that, Meg? Great line. Do you have to kiss so wet? Great line. When the cop's
Judy.
in the woods and he's like, found one. It's like, what game are we playing? We were trying to find dead children. That was
Right.
wild.
Oh
Um,
my god.
Also, that cop's mustache, if you freeze
I
it.
literally was about to say that. Oh
Is
my
it real?
god.
Is
Is
it
it?
real?
That's the
Uh,
game. Is his must and we know it's not. So yes,
yeah. Um,
we win.
and then other things I like about this movie are, I, I also think that like, oh, here's another one. I gotta take a wicked dump, so I'll see you guys down there.
Yes.
Something that doesn't make sense is he wants to consolidate all the kids because there are 25 left. First of all, he's like, in like only two boys have died up until that point, and the chef. But like you're gonna consolidate, you only have 25. Like who's actually going to this camp if there's only 25 kids left? Also, as Jamie pointed, I was watching it. Some of the kids are like 6 or 7. The other ones are like Ricky and Angela
Yes.
and Paul's age. Like there's like it's like doing Grease where the only characters in the high school are like the characters with lines. Like it's like why is Rydell High so empty all the time?
Right.
Um anyway, I like parts of this. I hated what this movie represents and what it is. But I will say I had a great time for an hour and a half until the last twist. And then I was like, oh, I feel yucky for having a great time for an hour and a half. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I'm out. And then I had to rewind it to watch those scenes. But those are my high level likes and gripes.
Truly high level for the lowest of lowest
Yeah.
level
We
of
so
film.
I have a question for you two before we go into our next segment.
Hmm.
Two things. One, I want to talk about the Judy scene,
Yes.
the killing scene. Who was that at the door? How did they film that? Do we think that that was Ricky? Do we think that that was Angela, like purposely dressed as a boy in that sequence? Like, I'm still confused, and I tried doing some reading, it didn't find much. And two, I didn't get this. Jamie had to kind of nudge me in the direction, and I saw it on Wikipedia. Nikisha, I have a question for you also. How was Judy killed?
I had to read the Wikipedia.
You
I
did.
did the same thing because I first off, I was laughing at the fact that there's a pillow over her face and then you just see the shadow of the iron, but then both of her hands are just in the air.
Mm.
Not fighting people, not fighting somebody off, which was so frustrating. Just straight in the air, just hands in the air when she could have done so many other things to get out of that situation. So to answer your point, I did not know what was happening, but I read the Wikipedia to try to make sense of that flashback and all of the things because my theories about that were going all which way. And then when they said that, you don't get that from watching the movie that's how Judy died, and it's unfortunate. With the I forgot about looking at the guy in the doorway and it looked like it was Ricky or somebody dressed up like a boy. So maybe she was dressing up like a boy. I also said to myself, the first couple of kills, the hands, they did not look like little girl hands. It looked
Sure.
like a male was, even though it's still a young male. But I just think that a lot of stuff just didn't add up in this in general. So yeah, I don't know why they'd have that shot in the doorway. Maybe it was something that they had and they did bad
Red
editing.
herring,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
maybe. And then, oh my god. And then at the very end where she's caressing what's his name, Polly's head, and that whole thing. And actually, Brian, there is nudity because at the very end they had to show his penis
Well,
to make sure they
that's
know
what I
that he's a
mean.
guy.
What I
Yes.
mean is like that's the only time they actually
Yeah.
show any nudity, because like the idea that like I was genuinely surprised that there were no like gratuitous sex scenes,
For
and there were
sure.
no like
Same.
just like boobies in the woods. Like I was just like genuinely surprised for an 80s camp movie, and
Hmm.
it made sense once they shock you with the reveal. There's a like questioning of like uh but they're like his package is protruding. You have like Judy with her name over her boobs in the shirt, like in
Hmm.
that one scene. You have Angela being freaked out when like someone's trying to go into her shirt. That even in the
Yeah.
shower scenes, like any like they don't show any of that stuff. Oh, and they do show the butts when they're skinny dipping, but everybody has a butt.
Yes.
Everybody has a
Yes.
butt. I mean,
Yes, thank you.
except for spoiler, except for in Fresh at the end, they do not have butts.
Oh no.
Um,
That's okay. Yep. I'm just
yeah, so I just thought that was fascinating in general. That actually surprised me a lot, but I understand why they did it.
yes. On that note, let's go on to our butt brains section. But Tina Belcher would be so happy. So let's talk about how the human behavior and everything is. Before I ask Jamie to give me her thoughts about everything that is so transphobic and awfully tropey about this, I want to ask just the general, what was the worst? All of the kills were pretty bad, but like what was the worst one for you? As in, this is absolutely the stupidest thing I've seen. What do you think, Jamie?
Because my first thought was going to be the rapey kill. But I
Yes.
don't think that's the stupidest. I just feel like it's the most unnecessary, and like what it
Yes.
implies makes me very mad.
Yes.
I mean, I guess the stupidest is like, why'd she hack those like very tiny children who were camping? They threw sand at her and she murdered them with a hatchet in their sleeping bags, and none of them woke up.
Jamie had to explain that to me. Actually, when she was being pulled out of the water and the kids were throwing sand at her, Jamie started laughing. She was like, "The kids are throwing sand at her," and then I wouldn't have like picked up on that. Like that's the only reason I put two and two together. That like she killed the
Right.
kids because they threw sand at her.
Yes. Wild.
It's like the the reasons. I mean, I guess like you probably shouldn't have reasons to want to murder people. However, in the context of this, the reasons for her to kill people are getting more and more insane.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. Most of them are pretty awful, but like Billy dies by bees because he threw water balloons.
Yes, but also he's in a stall that he could crawl out the bottom and or top of.
Well, he's
And
pooping.
I don't. Well, you can move, move and poop
I
and
don't
keep
know.
If
He
there are
was
moving.
pooping.
bees and I need to get out of there, I don't care if there's a poop hanging out of my tushy. I am
Exactly.
army crawling under that.
Under the stall and get out of
Yeah,
there.
what is it? A
Maybe it
turtle
was a
head? A turtle
European
head?
toilet.
Turtle
A
head.
turtle head
Yes.
popping out? Yeah, it was a European toilet. It goes all the
Oh,
way to the bottom.
Oh no.
I've never heard turtlehead. I've heard prairie dogging,
Oh,
which is
prairie
also
dogging.
gross.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ugh.
Well, speaking on the motivation of speaking of poops, uh, speaking on the motivation of killing people, Jamie, can you just give me your thoughts about the trope of suppressing one's identity, and then that leads to murderous behavior, and how toxic that can be? But also, can you talk about the general trauma of someone who has to or has been suppressing who they are, because of whatever reason, and how that can manifest itself in negative ways, not necessarily murderous ways?
Yeah. The first part of like gender dysphoria and the impact that it can have on an individual is
Mhm.
like cool. Thank you for bringing awareness to this. I am happy that you are using film as a medium to bring awareness to like, when you're forced to perform an identity that doesn't feel like you,
Mm,
that can have a negative impact. However, it
yes.
immediately becomes problematic when you are implying that gender dysphoria equals lunatic
Wait,
murderer.
I know we're talking
Lunatic.
about something serious, but Lunattack is truly maybe the best thing that we've said on this podcast. A
I
lunatic,
agree.
like a lunatic maniac, like attack is truly transcendent. A
Well, thank
lunatic.
you. Thank
Yes,
you.
Oh my
agreed.
gosh.
That was not
Wha-
intentional. That was a brain fart of massive proportions.
A brain
Um,
genius. Okay.
but yeah, again, it's like they took something and then they like they spun it into something that's like really offensive and like harmful, and is only like perpetuating unhelpful beliefs around transgender folks, and like that there continues to be a narrative to this day around transgender and non-binary folks, and like this is not helping the cause by any means. But again, the small piece that that would have been great if they spent actual time on is
Mhm.
like the gender dysphoria piece, and like just how distressing that can be to an individual to like not be able to express their true identity, their gender expression, their gender role, like in the ways that are true to who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. With the trauma at the beginning, or with Angela being very quiet, we think that that is a result of maybe because she saw her father and brother be killed, but it could also just be because she's hiding behind all of the other things that we find out at the end. Someone who experiences loss, is it common for somebody to kind of be quiet or stop talking in that way, or is that kind of a TV fantasize or exaggeration of a trauma response?
Just like shutting down and not being as verbal.
Yeah, because I mean, it's so weird too, because the movie, it makes it seem like she's not going to talk really at all, but then she does because of
That
another
surprised
boy.
me because
But
I was like,
yeah,
cool, I'm all in on like her just being silent this whole time. And then she
right,
started talking and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I wonder where this is going to go now. Not in a good direction, but like
right,
that was interesting.
yeah.
But
So, yeah, is that something that could be a trauma response? Is it's completely shutting down, and I guess I'm asking to not talk completely ever again.
I mean, yeah, like I think I don't, it's definitely not impossible. Maybe
Mm,
it's like on the rarer side. I think shutting down as an overarching category as a response to a traumatic event, like totally way more plausible, is very possible.
yeah.
It reminds me of and now I'm not going to remember exactly what it was, but there was a book that I read when I was in like middle school or high school about like a young student who I think is like not, she's silent, she's mute, but it's like after she experienced a traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Speak, and I think they made a movie out of it too.
Oh,
Um and I think Kristen Stewart was in it, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Producer Brian, you want to fact check me on that? But yeah, I mean, like it's not like totally uncommon. Maybe it's even I'm also not a child therapist, but
Hmm.
I feel like that might be a more likely uh like trauma response in a younger person and a child as opposed to an adult who experienced a trauma.
Yeah.
So like yeah, maybe in terms of like child development stuff, like it's understandable that she's a bit more reserved and like, you know, isolating herself socially because of what she experienced.
Okay. Speak is a 2014 drama starring Kristen Stewart about a freshman
Word.
high school student, Melinda, who refused to speak ever
Mm.
since she called the cops on a party, on a summer party, with her friends snubbing her for being a rat and her parents too busy to notice her troubles. She folds into herself, trying to hide the real secret that star senior Andy raped her at the party. Um, and uh and then she finds solace in like one of her teachers at school who helps her or whatever it is. But yeah, that's Speak.
Gotcha.
It has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
Anyway.
just kind of reminds me of when we talked about Us and how she was quiet. I mean, of course, we know the real reason why
Mhm.
Red Not Red was quiet, but
But to be
you know,
fair,
in that same
Nikisha,
sense.
you make a really good point in this, in that the two most recent movies where someone has been silent, we think it's PTSD, but it's actually kind of something else,
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
is fascinating. That the
right.
trope is saying this is why they're doing it, and our brains say that this is why they're not speaking because that's like movie trope, and
Mhm.
it's
Right.
Mhm.
actually that's part of the twist too. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Mm.
I also just want to say I always feel yucky about the trope of somebody getting bullied and then it equals unaliving behavior. And I think that
Mhm.
that's was in watching that just really kind of stuck out to me. Just as it's with the way the world is now too. It's very yucky to think that someone who is the victim, you know, of bullying, that's their only way, you know, of lashing out. That's just a side note. And it also reminds me, Brian, you'll appreciate this, of The Boys and oh, why can't I think of her character? Kamiko
Mhm.
and her trauma that she experienced. And so she's
Mm,
silent throughout, but the rest of her life, she just does sign language now.
mm.
She doesn't speak at all because of the things that she experienced. So it's always interesting how movies and TV or media portrays that kind of quote unquote trauma response within characters.
And for
My,
more on media, listen to our Nope episode.
oh my gosh. Still talking about that with people.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Mhm.
my last thing, and I just want to know what your thoughts are about the unt and where the hell all that came from. Because I know they don't give us much, but for someone to just say, I have this child and I just want to change their gender. So here it is.
Yeah, I truly I mean, I don't have much on this because it just like doesn't make sense because they didn't
Yeah.
really explain it well. And I think
Right.
like, you know, I mean, I also feel like how could you possibly explain this particular thing any better? Like I don't think that there is an effective explanation. I
Fair.
think maybe like seeing and again, I don't think this would have made it make sense or even make me like this movie more, but like maybe if we saw the aunt more than like for 5 minutes in the entirety of this movie, then maybe there would be more like clarity on why does the aunt act in this way, like
Hmm.
what is her deal, because we only get the weird beginning scene where like she seems eccentric and forgetful but not like significantly mentally ill.
Exactly.
Unclear if she's like so like deeply affected by I mean we don't even know if it's her brother that died, or like I don't
Right.
think they clarify that,
Mm-mm.
or because like we don't know where the mom is.
Well, I think it. We rewatched it. I'm almost positive. I'd have to watch it again, but I'm not going to. Um, I think that the dad at the beginning says something that like they're like, "Oh, I wish mom could be here," or maybe mom isn't here or something. I don't remember exactly what they say. Um,
Mm.
Mm.
And then I'm pretty sure that he says, your sister, the doctor, is coming.
Okay.
Because
So it
she's the
is his
doctor.
sister.
I
Okay.
think so.
Who gave this person a medical license?
Yeah, right?
What?
Oh,
Like,
here's another bad doctor in a movie.
Yes.
oh God, just add it to the list. I can't.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Because she gives him the physicals and she's like, don't tell them how you got these physicals.
Yes.
Yep.
So
Ah!
here's my question for you two, if I can add on to brains.
Mm-hmm.
Did Ricky know?
It's a great question.
Did Ricky know that that's part of the secret? Or when he says, so she says, the aunt says, don't tell anyone you got these physicals. And he's like, I would never tell anyone. Does that mean that just like he thinks that like parents shouldn't be giving kids physicals? Or does he know that his cousin is actually Peter? Like, is that one of the secrets that Ricky is carrying? Is that why he's so overprotective of Angela? Is he just, like, you'd think that like at some point growing up, like, I don't know. I don't know.
Just being together in the same household, that in some way you walk in on
Showering or
something and see the
something like,
things. Yeah.
or like a who's the boss, like Angela sequence where they actually like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, because then that makes me question his friend Paulie trying to get with Angela and how Ricky would react and feel to that.
I don't
like,
think he knew.
okay.
I
Which
don't
makes
think
me think
that
I don't think he knew.
knew
Yeah.
because of like what you're saying, but also like I just think genuinely. I mean, again, they explain it very poorly, but I think that Aunt Martha just like from that moment was like, "This is what I'm doing," and then concealed it because she was talking about concealing it, the true identity in her own home. So like,
Yeah.
who's to say that Ricky would have ever found that information out, unless like Angela / Peter told Ricky herself.
Yeah. Just such bad writing. Ugh. Any other thoughts about the human behavior, any of this?
I just want to know, how on earth are there more of these movies? That
Right.
that blows my mind more than anything else. Like, where do you go from here?
I was reading about it. Apparently, they recast what's her name, Angela, with Bruce Springsteen's sister, Pamela Springsteen, plays her in Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. I think their Sleepaway Camp 4 is a direct sequel, and a lot of the same director as the original, and a lot of the people came back for it. I think it takes place at a different camp. 2 and 3 take place at a different camp where Angela's a counselor or something like that, and she like retains her, like she's a she her, and something to that effect. I did some brief reading on them because I was just I don't want to watch them, but I was fascinated by this chain. And then there was a direct to sequel. I didn't even know there was a 5th one until you said it, Nikisha.
Mhm. It's ridiculous, but I do actually, now that I know that she is continuing her Angela story, I just want to read what the rest of it is,
Totally.
just to know. Okay, so shall we do some Rotten Tomatoes? See what this got.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yeah, I am fascinated to see what you two think this Rotten Tomato score is. Okay, Nikisha, what do you think this Rotten Tomato score is?
21.
Jamie, what do you think this is?
36.
Wow, this has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Stop it.
What?
Sleepaway Camp is a standard teen slasher elevated by occasional moments of John Waters-esque weirdness and a twisted ending.
Absolutely not. What is
No.
John Watersy about this?
The mustache, the cop's mustache.
There, that's the only thing.
I think that we are at a loss for this movie because Jamie said right off the bat, we have no nostalgia for this. This was a twist for the ages in terms of like this coming out. To me, like, this is like Malignant level twist, but this is way more awful and not right, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. In terms of like wildness, um, that's my personal opinion. I think that people like if people I bet you if you asked most people who had seen a lot of 80s horror movies, I bet you Sleepaway Camp would easily be in their top 10.
I think a lot of what I was reading is like just that ending scene is so disturbing for people. But I'm like, but why is it disturbing? Like, what is it about
Mm,
this that's disturbing to you and that's like standing out? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it is like, in real life, the actress who plays Angela was like a minor, so she was never going to be nude. Also, like they needed a male to show male nudity, and so they
Mm.
like super. I don't know if they like no, they couldn't have superimposed her face
I
on
think
him.
it's
I
just a
think he was
statue.
wearing a mask. No, I think he was wearing a mask that kind of looked like her head. Like an
Mm,
adult
Mm.
male, when you see
Mm-hmm.
the full body reveal, is
Mm-hmm.
wearing a mask of her face.
ah,
And it like looks weird because it's like
Very
not her
creepy.
face and
yeah.
you're only getting the close-ups of her actual face. But like it's like it just makes me question like why you think it's weird? Like what are you trying to say?
Right.
Because like but I also like I just cannot fathom this movie in when it came out and like the context of it coming out, like what people thought. But again, we have no nostalgia for it. So like I don't give a flippin'
Yep.
hoo
Yep.
ha about it.
I'll also say we are recording this before we watch They Slash Them, which we're doing an episode
Mhm.
on. So you'll have already heard our They Slash Them takes. I'm curious to see if this is how transgender, gender dysmorphia, dysphoria,
Dysphoria.
excuse me, gender dysphoria, in '83. My fingers crossed. They Slash Them is better.
Much better.
You know,
Yeah.
like that's my hope. So,
It it just seems like they tried to do kind of a psycho twist moment,
mhm.
but
Mhm.
it and tried to make it more new aged, and it just didn't land because
Yeah.
of everything that we said.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
okay, four S's.
Go us.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Oh
Yes,
wow.
go us.
I am so excited to hear your 4 S's.
Mm.
Uh the 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We rank them 1 through 10 and then give a suggestion of what would be in a Walmart pack. Skulls is how well it handled mental health human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. Shakes is how much can you shake this movie off. Jamie, let's start with you. Let's run through skulls, scares, shakes, and we'll stop at suggestions for now.
Cool. So for Skulls, I gave it a 1.5 because outside of this is how sometimes young people act at summer camp, there is nothing believable about the way that any person acts as a person. People are not being people in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of scares, I gave it a 2. I don't really think that like I mean, there's no jump scares. The scares aren't too horrifying, but I would say like when you see the aftermath of the dead body reveal, like some of them
Mm.
are definitely unpleasant to look at.
Okay.
Um, for shakes, it, I have a range because I couldn't quite pick a number, and my general range is anywhere between a 4 and a 7. Mostly because I can't understand why people like this movie, and
Mm.
that idea is stuck in my head. But like the movie in and of itself, I can't wait for it to exit my brain. I'm okay with never thinking about this
I'm
ever
putting you
again.
at the 5.5 average because
Great,
it's over halfway, but like we want to get it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Nikisha, what about you? Skulls, scares, and shakes.
So, Skulls, I gave it a 2 for, like Jamie said, people are not peopling here, and for the concepts that could have been good if the bad tropes weren't thrown in to make it awful. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a 2. Scares, nothing about it was scary to me. I'll give it a 1. And Shakes, I'm giving it a 2 because I will only remember it for the conversation that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's
it.
fair.
Mhm.
Skulls for me is a 1. I'm only giving it that because of how camp is, and I thought Ricky was a really good cousin. Um,
Yeah.
Scares, I'm giving it a 1. This was not scary to me at all. If anything, all the screaming and stuff like undercut how scary it was. Um, the only thing I will give it is that last image, just like even without like just that green glow and like the
Mm.
hand in the head. I'm not even talking about the penis and like and that reveal aspect of it, but like they really try to shock you at the end. Um Shakes, this is an 8 for me. I did not like it, but I will never forget this movie and what it represents and what was
That's
happening in
fair.
it. Like like there have been Broadway shows that I absolutely hated, but it is a top 3 experience that I will never forget because of just like my disdain for it and how shocked I was at certain things. So like for that reason, this is an 8, not because it's good, but because like yeah, I'm s- I'm I am speechless. I don't know. That's just
Yes.
where I am. All right, suggestions. Let's go around. Jamie, you got a suggestion for us?
Yes. So I couldn't remember what it was, and I was trying to Google it based on
Great.
describing it to Brian, and then we figured out what it was. The film is called Slaughter High.
Mm.
It's another like very campy 80s horror movie about a prank gone wrong and revenge. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
let's play Rotten Tomatoes game with Nikisha.
Oh
Nikisha,
God.
what do you think Slaughter High has on Rotten Tomatoes?
40%?
It has a 0%, Nikisha.
No way.
I was
Obsessed.
shocked. I don't think I've ever seen a 0.
It's on
Yeah.
From what I
Tubi.
remember, it wasn't that great, but it is very similarly campy and like again, solid slasher kills
What's it
in
called
the same
again?
vein as this.
Sl-
Slaughter High.
Slaughter
on
High.
Tubi.
Okay. On
Hmm.
Tubi. My dad
Uh,
loves
Like high
watching bad
school.
Tubi movies, so I'm going to suggest that to him.
Tubi is one of the best. Tubi and Shutter, in terms of like their Shutter, obviously because it's all horror, but like Tubi's
Yeah.
horror selection, A+.
Hmm.
Like just like weird stuff and
It's
still some
so
good stuff.
weird.
So weird.
So weird.
Um, Nikisha, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I would rather watch the Friday the 13th remake,
Mm.
2009 awful, awful movie, than ever suggest this movie to anybody else. So Friday the 13th, specifically the 2009 remake.
Um, cool. I'm gonna suggest another '80s horror movie, Night of the Demons. Um, it's it's another movie that I think is fine. It has like very problematic things happening about it. It does some cool things in it as well. There's a lot of nudity in that movie, probably more female than male. Um, uh, but it has some good practical effects, and people have a ton of nostalgia for it. I liked it much better than this one, so I'll go with Night of the Demons.
Hmm.
Nice. Well, that wraps up our episode of Sleepaway Camp. Boy, did we have a good time talking about this
Good
movie.
good is relative.
And very relative.
We had a
But
conversation.
we had a
We did.
conversation. I enjoyed the conversation
Yeah,
because when you hate something together, it just makes you feel the validation is real. So you can follow us on all social medias, the TikToks, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
sure. You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, like Stitcher, like Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah, wherever you get them. And then if you're listening to us, hop on over to YouTube and watch our beautiful faces. Um
Woo!
yeah, so we're on YouTube, Talking Horror Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe there. Some really cool stuff there. And then obviously, like Nikisha said, there's some really nice videos on TikTok. Rate and
Yes.
review us 5 stars, please.
And
And
thank
thank you.
you. Brian, you want to leave us with one of your many quotes from this movie?
Oh yeah, let me see. Let me see if I can find another really good one. Um, oh no. Uh, It was an accident? Did someone say that? Worst kitchen staff ever. No, I'm gonna end with my favorite of all time. This guy blows dead dogs.
Just the language in the 80s. You gotta love it.
No one talks like this. Thank
No
you.
one. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.